What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Play Collar Sports Talk Show. You know, it's Friday night. You know, we do it live, interactive. I'm, of course, one half of the dynamic duo in the tag team champions of Sports Talk. It's your boy, Box. Find me on Twitter at Box Talk Sports, and, of course, at Real Play Callers. And I'm joined, as always, with my tag team partner.
I go by Cool. But right now, you can just call me at Real Play Callers on Twitter. Let's
Yes,
go.
sir. And together, we are the Play
Play
Callers. So cool, man. Got a big night in store for everybody. I know there's some NBA news that happened with the All-Star game and all that kind of stuff. We're gonna probably dive into that a little bit more next week. As this week we'll obviously be talking a lot of NFL. You know, rumor is there's a couple of big games happening this week, man. So we're gonna talk about those.
Wasn't aware, man, but I'm glad you let me know.
Yeah, I mean, one of them might have involved this team on my head right now, which might be why I'm a little extra stoked about it.
Neither one of them involved the team on my head.
We've also got some coaching and general manager hires that we need to talk about. Couple surprise and not so surprise and possible retirements to talk about as well as what might happen to somebody who is not playing football anymore this week. So lots to talk about.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Where would you like to start?
Oh man, you know what? Let's actually start by talking about some of these retirements and potential retirements.
Let's go.
Obviously, the one we expected, Big Ben, right? No surprise on that one. We all kind of knew that was coming. There was a little bit of debate about whether he just meant his time was over in Pittsburgh or whether he was going to retire, period. But ultimately, nobody's really surprised that he's walking away. So my question for you is, reflecting back on his career, what are your thoughts on Big Ben?
So, I look at Big Ben as two different players. There was the last couple of years of Big Ben, the first couple of years of Big Ben. That was not the greatest. What's going on, Big E? That was not the greatest, but not the worst. Now, the middle years, really productive. Couple of off the field things that I feel I did not get resolved the way that they should have and investigated to the fullest extent. But as an on the field player, man, he's a really good player, definitely a Hall of Famer. Won Super Bowls. Big Ben, he had his own burger in Pittsburgh, the Roethlisberger. He was a cultural icon for that city, man. So he was, big for them, and it was very, it was wonderful to watch him play. I never thought he was the best quarterback in the league, but he was clearly always in the top 7 or so after his first couple of seasons. I think he retired like a year too late, but I mean, in some ways, when to pay you that much money, I got to come back and get that. So that's pretty much how I feel about Big Ben.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, you get guys that they've been to that mountaintop and they maybe can convince themselves that maybe just that one more year. Good example of that was Peyton Manning. I mean, he clearly played a year longer than he should have, but he got a Super Bowl out of it because that Denver defense absolutely carried him. Woody Flo does not really agree. He says Ben is average was carried by others. It's a hot take right there, Woody.
What's up, Billy V as well, man, while we shouting out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, my thoughts in regards to that is I would agree early in Ben's career, he got carried. But I think that's pretty much true for everybody. I mean, Brady got carried early in his career as well. So a lot of these teams, a lot of these quarterbacks, they do get carried early in their careers.
I have to interject here. Brady got carried by the refs after that. So just want to make sure we throw that out there in the correct sense.
I mean, I had no problem with that. I knew we were going to talk about Brady here in a few minutes, so I figured we could throw all the pot shots in then, but it's okay if you're going to get one in now.
I had to.
Yeah. So, my thing is, I think Ben was, like you said, he was never like the best quarterback in the league at any given time, but he was always one of the top guys. and you always kind of felt like he was one of those guys that could put the team on his shoulder and carry them. Unfortunately, there was some off-field stuff that didn't really ever get resolved, like you mentioned, and I think that does kind of tarnish him a little bit.
Yeah.
But with the over here with the Flames tonight, so. But yeah, I think Ben will go into the Hall of Fame, even with some of the question marks around him. I don't think there's any question about that. And I think that the Steeler fans are probably happy that he's kind of moving on and they can just move forward. So, I mean, that's really all there is to say about Ben, man. You know.
And while we're talking Hall of Fame, shout out Big Papi real quick for making it in. Yeah. So, don't throw that out there.
And I will just say, man, I'm not a baseball guy, but somebody asked me the other day. They go, "Hey, I know you don't watch baseball, but do you think that Barry Bonds not getting in is ridiculous?"
It's a travesty.
And I'm like, look, I'm not even a baseball fan. I don't watch baseball, but I know who Barry Bonds is, and not because of the steroids controversy, but because of his play on the field. So
it's a travesty.
For him to not be in it's ridiculous.
It's disrespectful too. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a travesty. I'm not going to get on that because then we will have nothing else that we will be able to talk about, because I have 2 hours worth of things I could say about it. But just know that I think it's a farce. It's a travesty. And all the writers and reporters that would not vote for him, you are all jokes. And he should be in.
I'm going to do my absolute best to poke and prod my co-host into doing a live video sometime the next week, all on his own on the channel, where he would just spend like an hour talking about Barry Bonds not getting into the Hall of Fame, because that just sounds entertaining. So another person who wore we'll say black and gold, very close to black and yellow, of that we didn't maybe expect to retire was Sean Payton. What are your thoughts on this situation?
Well, I'm gonna be real with you. I'm not surprised. That team is 70 million over the cap. They don't have a quarterback, and Drew Brees is long gone. So hence why they don't have a quarterback, and they're not going to sniff the playoffs probably anytime soon. Does Sean Payton want to stick around for a full rebuild? I don't blame him for that. Yeah. I'm not surprised. I'm actually surprised that he stayed last year. Yeah. So for me, I don't have that, but I can understand why. He wanted to retire, because you get burnt out. He's been doing it for 15 years, right? Yeah. He's turned down opportunities to go to other places, to stay there. And it's interesting that he's retiring the year after Mike McCarthy kind of had a little controversy there at his dream job in Dallas. And I'm sure that his retirement had nothing to do with that. So it is what it is.
Yeah, Josh.
That's a good question, Josh. That's a great question.
I'm just gonna throw this out there real quick. We won't really get too much into this conversation, but the reason why that happens, and I really think the NFL should do something about this, is you allow teams to keep kicking money down the road. Mm-hmm. We saw this a couple years ago with the Chiefs when they signed Mahomes to that long deal. They re-signed Chris Jones. It seems like they re-signed everybody. And they did it by extending guys out and basically just pushing money down the road. At some point, they're going to have to pay that money. Mm-hmm. And they're hoping that the salary cap continues to go up at a point that they don't have to at some point. But, that's the problem with what a lot of these teams are doing with the salary cap gymnastics. There needs to be like a cap to say you can't be this, but a certain amount over future salary caps or something like that. Because some of the teams, man, that's ridiculous. How do you get to 70 million over the cap, bro? That's crazy. like the cap this projected season is like 208. 70 million. So you're like almost like half of another cap. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous. So personally, when the first news came out about Sean Payton, I personally thought maybe he was trying to use it as leverage to get them to go after somebody. There's a lot of quarterbacks talking about maybe demanding trades this offseason or whatever. But I think maybe he went in the front office. Maybe he didn't know what the numbers were. He went in there demanding for them to get somebody, and they're like, well, Sean, how are we going to pay him? We 70 million over the cap. He was like,
yeah, I think after he saw his team perform this year, he was like, you know what, man? I'm out. Like, this is not, yeah. I'm out.
Dude,
And
I don't know what's going on with Woody over here, man. He's calling people goobers and
I mean, I honestly kind of agree with him though. I think that's pretty much what happened. You know what I'm saying? No cap on the cap. That's cap. That's coming from a rapper, sir.
favorite rapper's favorite rapper.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm not too surprised. I think the big question people have is he going to go coach somewhere else? Specifically, I know a lot of Cowboys fans are hoping and dreaming and wishing that he comes to Dallas.
In 2 years.
I would agree. I think it's going to be at least 2 years.
Well,
But
it has to be 2 years.
here's the thing, man. Somebody's going to offer this dude some money to come sit up in a broadcast booth. And we know that broadcast money is way nicer than the head coach money.
Yeah, it's going to be because he's under contract through 2023 season with the Saints. So if he was to coach somewhere else before then they would owe him, they would owe the Saints pits and things. So I think that's not going to happen. But you bring up a good point. What if we were to see a booth with him and Drew Brees? That would be crazy, right? But I think he's going to take that money, like you said. I think we're going to see him broadcasting this year coming up. He's going to be a broadcaster. And it may be hard to suck him back into coaching. Same thing with the late, great John Madden, right? He got over on that side, and you can never get him back over to coach.
Right. Another name of that, Bill Cowher.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, and then the other name, we got to talk about is Tom Brady. They lost in the divisional round of the playoffs.
Yep.
Which is not somewhere where Brady's used to losing. As a matter of fact, he's won 9 games, 9-0 in the divisional round before this year. They look like they might pull it off, man. It looked like the Rams were going to completely collapse, and they managed to pull it out because I don't know what kind of defensive philosophy you got that says you're going to blitz the corner that's covering Cooper Kupp and leave your safety one-on-one, but that was bad. That was a bad idea. I don't know what you were thinking calling that play, Todd Bowles, but that was a horrible, horrible play call, horrible decision. But, Giselle posted a picture of Tom Brady with his sons and captioned it, "Enjoy the time you have left." I think that message was for Tom specifically. I think the moment Tom got his lip busted open and he over there crying to the referees and they said, "Dude, get out our face. We're not giving you a flag." Giselle said, "Oh, no, that's it. You're not getting protected no more. We done."
Well, if you've actually paid attention the last 2 or 3 years, she's basically been saying she wants him to retire.
Yeah.
So I don't really think it's the lip. Honestly, I think it's just the fact of like, yo, Tom, it's time. You're 44 years old, right? No, you don't need to go back out there and play no more. We don't want you here banged up, not able to do anything. And that's what's going to have to happen.
that's Eric
Matthew
time,
Westbrook's Stafford. I definitely agree that my whole non-belief in the Rams is tied directly to Matt Stafford. They should have kept AB. That's what AB said on Twitter, right? With the poster.
Yeah.
But hey, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, man, I just think, you get to a point where the competitor in you is like, oh, I can continue to do this. I can continue to do this. But people around you have to say like, look, you're done.
Yeah.
And one person that can tell you you're done and you've already pushed them away for a couple of years and got by is your wife.
Yeah.
So I really believe that this is it for Tom Brady. And I don't really think it's his decision anymore.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that this is going to be it. The rumors are that he is looking to announce his retirement. He doesn't want to do it right now with the games coming up this weekend and make it all about him. He wants to, maybe do it like the week in between.
Yeah,
where you had that kind of that basically a bye week where we're gonna have the Pro Bowl,
the lull time, the game nobody cares about.
Yeah, which I mean, I can respect that. And we talk a lot of smack about Brady, and yes, he's definitely had the wrestle on the side. He got carried by Belichick in the defense early in his career.
He's a cheater.
he's a cheater. I would never call him the GOAT. I mean, you lost
Ever.
Nick Foles and Eli Manning, so
Ever.
I would never call you the GOAT. But
Ever.
but I will say that he is one of the all-time greats. He is a certified Hall of Famer, and I have a lot of respect for what he accomplished on the field.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
Yeah,
You got to give him
but
his props, but he still
you're
cheats.
still a cheater. You're still not the GOAT.
Exactly. Deflated balls and having the other team's plays does help.
Hey man, I mean, I can't root for a man who walks around worrying about the size of balls. Just can't do it.
Why would he want them deflated? That's just like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, we gonna see about that, Josh. I think that's an interesting
Not the Shannon
conversation to
Sharp.
have.
The Shannon Sharp.
Because here's my thing. I feel like a couple years ago they started leaning into Mahomes because there really wasn't another young quarterback in the league at the time that was playing at a high level. But now you got a Josh Allen who's playing really well. You got a Joe Burrow who's playing really well. You got a couple of other guys that got drafted this year that we're gonna have to wait to see what they turn into. You got Justin Herbert out there for the Chargers.
Mhm.
So there's some other young quarterbacks that could get into that conversation. So I'm going to be interested to see how the NFL really treats Patrick Mahomes going forward, knowing that he's no longer their only hope in terms of young quarterbacks.
Yeah, don't forget Sunshine for Remember the Titans down there in Jacksonville.
He's one of those quarterbacks who was drafted this year, sir.
Yeah, no, I'm just want to make sure we point out Sunshine, but he needs to he's going to have to get the right coach there, someone that's going to teach him. He needs an offensive minded coach that can develop quarterbacks.
Yeah, Joe Burrow is definitely playing behind one of the worst offensive lines in the league. We've all been saying that since draft day,
Listen,
and it's not
Joe
surprising.
Burrow is a man's man. You get sacked 9 times, you get blasted like 20 sometimes, and you get up and still drop dimes. You're a man's man. I got to give him that.
Yeah. I got respect for him.
Yeah.
Is that Herbert is the future. We'll see.
Mm,
You got to at least get your team to the playoffs before you start being the future.
the thing is, one good year, one not so good year. Where's Herbert really at? Probably in the middle, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not going to rule him out, but yeah, he's got some competition for that for sure.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of those. So let's kind of turn our attention a little bit to some of these hires that got made.
Yes, very true. So let's start off with the Broncos. They hired Green Bay Packers offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. Of course, the big thing about this hire is everyone's attempting to say, or at least attempting to lead a chain of breadcrumbs to this being a hire to get Aaron Rodgers in Denver. So here's the thing. I'll kind of leave some of the shine for you because we talked about this earlier. I'll simply say this. If you can hire someone that could possibly persuade Aaron Rodgers to come to your team when you have most of the other things that's needed, solid defense, really good young receivers, a good running back, questionable in tight end position, but Aaron Rodgers can make that work. Of course, you're going to try to see if you can get a guy in that Aaron Rodgers may, if he decides to leave Green Bay via trade, because remember, he's not a free agent, via trade, that he would want to, go to that team or somebody that he may want to still play with. But if that's the only reason,
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the key point, right? If that's the only reason you hired this dude, you're stupid. So hopefully they hired him because they have confidence in him as being their next head coach, not just his ability to get Aaron Rodgers in, and definitely not because of his ability to compete with Matt LaFleur for being the sexiest coach in the NFL. I don't know what that was about. That was just that was the weirdest comment anyone has ever made since Dan Campbell got on the microphone last for the Lions. So
yeah. Definitely have to acknowledge Dan Campbell.
Yeah. So yeah, it is what it is. But when I look at this, I'm asking myself, and I'm going to actually reference one of our sideline sports colleagues, Jordan Long, who is a Broncos fan. Um, when he said, "You have to think about what do the Broncos have to go?" Because he doesn't actually want Aaron Rodgers. He said, "Look, you gotta look at what do the Broncos have to give up to get Aaron Rodgers onto the team. That might actually hurt you. At the very least, you're giving up some draft picks. And realistically speaking, you're coming into a division that has Patrick Mahomes. You're coming into a division that has Justin Herbert. You're coming to a division that has Derek Carr. Where exactly does Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career fit in to that division? He's not automatically the best quarterback in the division. And it's debatable with the pieces that they have around him. Does he automatically make them the best team?
Well, it depends on who you look at, right? There's one camp that Aaron Rodgers can do no wrong, and he's the greatest quarterback, that's still playing, and he's the MVP every year, and he's all those things. There's the other camp that's kind of like, Aaron Rodgers has had his opportunities. He's only been in one Super Bowl. He won that Super Bowl, but that's it. Like, just one Super Bowl. That's all he's got over this quote unquote amazing career. I mean, Super Bowls are Super Bowls. It's a team thing. I feel like there's been times where he could have asserted himself as the veteran guy, as the guy that's been a multiple time MVP, and changed some things that he didn't, like last year. But I mean, it is what it is. You can't go back in time, and everybody doesn't have the opportunity to even win one Super Bowl. So, I'm not going to be that guy that's like, he didn't win more Super Bowls, so he's not good. That's not who I am. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge the fact that he did only win one. So it's kind of like a dual-edged sword with him. Witty Flow, of course, with the hot take. So we'll make sure we keep that receipt. If it happens, we'll give him the props. If it doesn't, we'll do what we do.
Yeah. Now, I will just say this about Aaron Rodgers. Not questioning whether he's a great quarterback, not questioning his talent. But I am going to point out that Aaron Rodgers, much like we just absolutely blast Matthew Stafford for this, also has a losing record against winning teams.
Well, man, I'll tell you, this is a personal opinion. No one has to agree with me. This whole thing about losing percentage against winning teams, does it really matter? I mean, are we looking back? And maybe some people are. So that's why I'm asking. Are we really looking back and saying, this guy played 15 years and his record was 40 and 70 against winning teams, so he's not a good quarterback? I mean, and again, there may be some people that do, but we often talk about a team game, right? There hasn't been a quarterback that hasn't been on a bad team and had a couple of bad seasons where they got spanked by some of the better teams in the league, right? Because at one point, all teams were the bad team that everybody beat up on. So you were losing to good teams because you were the bad team. So to me, it's fair in an argument if we're trying to decide if Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers is better, if that's a stat that you want to bring up to support your point. But do I really, really use that as something to help me determine who is a better quarterback? My answer is 100%, 1,000% no. That's just, my opinion.
So I think everything needs context. And I think it's important to recognize in the context of Aaron Rodgers that this is not a guy who came in and played his first couple years in the league. He was not asked to go out and be a part of a bad team, like a lot of young quarterbacks are. He played in a very weak division. You got to play a lot of really bad Bears teams. You played a lot of really bad Vikings teams. And we know you played a lot of really bad Lions teams. So at the end of the day, you racked up a lot of your wins and a lot of your division titles were because you were not playing against strong competition year in, year out. The Bears had a couple of seasons they were strong. The Lions even had a couple of playoff runs. The Vikings had a couple of strong seasons, but even their strong seasons weren't like super strong. Like they weren't like these dominant forces year in, year out. Aaron Rodgers has also never been a part of a really truly bad team. So yeah, you know what? When I look at this stat, when I look at a guy like Aaron Rodgers, I think it holds a little more weight. I'm not going to say that's universally across the board something I'm going to look at, but when I can look at it and I can say you've actually had pieces around you your entire career, looking at the fact that you've played against weird competition and that's why you have an overall winning record. But every time you get into a game against the big boys, you aren't doing as well. I think that's a fair knock.
Well, one last quick point. It says teams with a winning record. So back in the day, we had 16 games. If you were 9-7, you consider having a winning record,
Mhm.
right? The context of my question is, if you played a team that was 4-3, would that be considered a winning record? If so, then we got ebbs and flows in the season. We all know about this. I just think it's ridiculous, honestly, to put it really and not just saying it nicely. Truthfully, it's ridiculous, in my opinion. I understand why people do it. I understand your concept of what you're saying, but it's ridiculous. So that's just my opinion because it's too iffy. It's a stat that helps somebody like a Tom Brady, who always has the refs have his back. That's cheated against really good teams, so it helps somebody like that. So of course he's going to have a winning record.
Oh, Tom Brady played in a crappy division too. Let's just be clear about that.
Yeah, but
Uh,
of course he's going to be better. So I mean, that's just how I feel about that. Um, I
I
do
will
kind of agree with the really flow as well about Aaron Rodgers.
I will say this real quick. The site that I looked at when I was verifying the information, it did actually say on there that they were looking at the end of season records. So they were not looking at like if you had a winning record at the time that you played.
Well,
It
that's
was
even
it
that
was
could be
like
even more ridiculous.
so I'm just putting it out there for context of importance. But yeah. But yeah, so that's that. We'll see what happens. Personally, if I'm the Broncos, I'm not giving up what it would probably take to give up to get Aaron Rodgers,
No, no,
because he's not going to automatically make you the next best team in the division, or he's not going to automatically move you to the top of that division.
no,
There's going
he's
to
not.
be quarterbacks you're going to be able to go get with a lower price tag who can come in and probably give you a similar level of success.
I'll just stick to what it's going to cost to get like him or Deshaun Watson. You're not going to want to give up. I
Yeah.
don't think that there's anybody else that I've seen on the free agent market that's going to come in and do what Aaron Rodgers does, at least in the regular season, that you can go and get. But that's a different story for a different day.
Well, sir, I'm talking about winning games, not just
I've
stats.
talked about winning games as well, sir.
Okay.
I'm explicitly talking about winning games.
Well, we shall see what happens in the coming season. So it'll be interesting to look at. So if E is still on with us, I would love to hear his thought on the Giants just announced their new hire. They're hiring Buffalo's offensive coordinator Brian Dabble. So what do you think about that hire? As an NFC East guy, how do you feel about it?
Well, I don't like it because I think it's a good hire, and I don't want the Giants to ever make good hires. The reason is he took Josh Allen, obviously not the only person, but he's quite responsible for Josh Allen's development. And since the Giants are tied to Eli, I mean Eli's clone there, Daniel Jones. Uh, I feel like you bring in a guy that you think can help him. Um, the best guy as an offensive coordinator because you had to have a offensive coach was going to be, you know, Brian Dabble, right? Because he's from an organization that's been playing well. Obviously, adding more pieces helps, but this is a guy who should be able to help Daniel Jones develop. Now, if he can't get a lot out of Daniel Jones, then I think we're going to see Daniel Jones going. I don't blame you, Big E. I would not want to jinx anything before the season starts. But I think when you look on paper, you look at what he's been able to do. You look at the fact that he's been a commodity for a couple of years as a head coaching candidate, and the Giants were able to lure him there. That raises the profile of the Giants. Now, always with head coaches, there's three things that I pay attention to: offensive focus, defensive focused, experience level in your previous job, and your staff. We don't know about staffs yet. We can tell experience his previous job. Dabble's been there for a while. He's been a candidate, and he's an offensive guy. So a lot of people were linking Flores to the Giants, but they decided to go in the direction of a offensive coach, which I think was more focused on working on their franchise quarterback, or who they believe is their franchise quarterback at this time. So that's I think the right hire, at least on paper right now. We'll see how it actually works out.
Yeah. So Woody had put up there that the Giants did better than Panthers hiring McAdoo. One thing I will remind you, Woody, is that McAdoo is just going to be the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
When he did that job in New York, he actually did a very good job as just the offensive coordinator. It was when he became a head coach that the problems began. So keep that in mind. But no, I agree. I think this is a great hire for them. I'm not sold on them just basically admitting that they're going to keep Daniel Jones. But at the same time, I guess it's one of those situations they're looking at the quarterbacks in this draft and they're not impressed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame them. And
Nor
so
do I.
it's like, hey, let's just see if he can maybe do something with Daniel Jones. And if not, then we'll go ahead and just move on next year and get another quarterback.
Yeah. It's similar to the situation, in Philadelphia. There's been a lot made about, him being the future, Hurts not being the future. Well, let's just say he's the right now. Let's give him another year. Let's see what happens. Right? You can cut bait after next year, after year after next, and be done if he's not going to work out. Or you can trade him if someone wants to trade for him if he doesn't do as well as we expect him to do next year, right? I mean, it's the same thing with Daniel Jones. You're looking at him, you're saying, okay, this is a guy who we feel like should be playing better. We're going to give you a better coach, in our opinion, to help you. If you still can't get it done, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. Danny Dimes has gotten a little bit better every season. He still leaves a lot to be desired, but
Yeah.
he's definitely improved. The biggest question, obviously, very similar to what we went through in San Francisco with Jimmy Garoppolo. It's about health. If you can't be on the field, then that's going to be a problem. So it's one of those things that just happens with guys. You don't really know. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. One thing that I will say is kind of in terms of the general manager hire here. Let me clear these spam users off here real quick. But some of these general manager hires we'll maybe kind of dive into a little bit more as we get into the off season and talk about them a little bit more, especially after I think the draft, when we get a chance to really see what some of these guys do as GMs. I think we'll be able to have a little bit more conversation. But I did just want to acknowledge the fact that we did have two more minority general managers that have been hired already this offseason. So it is nice to see that actually moving and happening. Haven't really seen that happen in the head coaching ranks just yet, but it is nice to see it happening at the general manager level.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll wait until some of those things get stabilized, and then we'll definitely talk about that. Great time next week, or we kind of had an in between week where we can kind of roll with that. So we got one more coaching hire. I'm going to try to say this correctly. If I don't say it correctly, it is what it is. But I think it's Matt Eberflus.
Oh, I'm not even gonna try. So
he's the Colts defensive coordinator. So again, I always talk about side of the ball that you want to hire your head coach for. The Bears decided to go defensive. So that means in this meeting, and this is part of what I've learned from listening to radio, talking to people, because I'm sort of in the business a little bit now, a little bit. When you hire a guy, he's going to dominate one side of the ball. That's the side of the ball that's his experience, his background. So for Eberflus, it's the defense. So when he goes to the Giants and says, the Bears, we just got to talk about the Giants. When he goes to the Bears and says, this is who I'm going to bring in. The Bears, or who I'm attempting to bring in, or here's my list of candidates. The Bears have to be comfortable with the guys that he's going to bring in as offensive coordinator or try to go get to hire him to do the defensive side of the ball. What's important about that is Justin Fields. So he had to come with guys that the organization felt could develop Justin Fields.
Yeah.
So I've heard some rumors. Our passing game coordinator with the Eagles has been one of the rumors. We're not going to get into the rumors because they go all over the place. But
Yeah.
from the rumors, it sounds like that's the case. He's looking to reach out to guys interested in guys who should have the ability to develop a player like Justin Fields. So that's what you want if you're going to have a defensive coach come in when you have a young quarterback.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we're going to see from the Bears.
So Woody asked what we thought Dan Snyder is going to name the Washington football team.
I've heard Red Hawks, maybe Red Hawks, maybe Red Tails.
Yeah. I think it will probably have the word red in it.
I'm definitely
Yeah.
going down that route. Yes. Maybe they'll be the Washington Red Wings.
I also think that Charles Mann would not be happy about whatever it is.
I don't think he will. Yeah.
And outside of that, I really don't care, actually, just to be honest about it, because it's not my team. And I'll just say, like, out of the names that are left, I don't think any of them are like the greatest names ever, but none of them are horrible.
Yeah.
It's not like you're walking around calling yourself the Guardians
and having to fight with a arena league team for the name.
That's fair. That's fair, Woody. The Commanders. That's fair, because I think that's
I would want to be the Commanders. Yeah, I would want to be the Commanders.
Yeah, especially it'll be the Red Commanders.
Yeah. Sounds like a German army.
Yeah, that might get you in some trouble.
Wutenstag. We don't want that. We don't want that. So yeah, and to get serious, if I could be serious for a moment.
Go ahead, Landstorm.
The Jags are interesting to me because the candidates that were taken there were not good candidates. But I keep hearing Byron Leftwich. Like, that seems to be the guy. I don't know what the holdup is, but it sounds like from everything you hear that he has a very strong possibility to be that coach. Now I could also see him sliding down to the Dolphins, still in Florida, another team with a young quarterback. I could see him going there as well, but it's a lot of signs pointing toward him going to Jacksonville. Haven't heard anything yet. Maybe we'll have some information by next week, but that feels like a really strong possibility to me, and I don't ever say that lightly.
Yeah, but as we did point out a few weeks ago, just don't do it to yourself, Leftwich.
I don't know, man. You get sunshine. You got sunshine down there.
Yeah. Well, man, we are going to go ahead and jump into the preview for our NFC and AFC championship games that are coming up on Sunday, right after this 30-second break.
Yes, sir.
All right, welcome back to the Play Caller Sports Talk Show. So it is time for the NFC and AFC championship games. Down to the last four, man.
The final four.
So we got on the AFC, we got the Kansas City Chiefs. And I don't think we're gonna have time to talk about it tonight, so we might push this to next week. We gotta talk about how they got to this point. which was by winning in overtime against the Buffalo Bills in one of the more wild finishes to a game that any of us have seen in a while. Against the Cincinnati Bengals, who apparently are the epitome of you get knocked down 1,000 times as long as you keep getting back up.
Yes, agreed. Now, quickly, I want to say, all the ladies out there, 13 seconds is long enough to win. Just want to put it out there for the guys. 13 seconds is long enough.
A lot can happen. A lot can happen.
A whole lot could happen in 13 seconds. So understand that, ladies. Don't get a guy's grief. So I'm gonna go Cincinnati Bengals. Um, Kansas City, I think, is a 7 point or 6.5 point favorite. But I'm gonna go Cincinnati because I see the team that's like, look, we don't have anything to play. We don't have anything to hold back. We don't have anything we're really playing for. It's house money, and that's good enough. And yes, Eric, that's what she said. Um, I just feel like that's what's going to be able to happen. So for me, you know, the air raid attack, I'm going to just call it the air raid attack because Joe Burrow is going to really throw that ball. He has three real solid receivers. He's got a strong running back. He's got a good backup. So he's got a lot of weapons around him that he could, give the ball to. And I've been betting against Cincinnati since before they got in the playoffs. I said they weren't going to make it. I said they weren't going to win the first game. I said they weren't going to win the second game. So finally, this hard head has gotten some logic into it. I believe they're going to find a way to win this game. And I do believe also everyone's expecting the over-under, I think it's 50-some points. I don't think they're going to see 50-some points together. I think we're looking at like 21, 17, 21-20 with somebody, going for the two. Obviously, in my calculations, it would be Kansas City and not getting it. So I think that's what we're more looking at. We're looking at seeing not a high score game as most people think. And I'm going Cincinnati. Yes, sir. Sometimes you have to see the error of your ways, Billy B, and make a change. Like you're the man in the mirror, Michael Jackson.
So, I ended up switching my pick at the last minute to pick the Titans. But I had been talking all week about how I thought Cincinnati had a really good chance to make that game, to win it. And for the same reason that you were just pointing out, like they had that looseness about them. They go out there, they play. Now, you say that you don't think this game is going to get to 50 points. Listen, these are two not very good defenses. There's going to be a lot of scoring in this game, I have a feeling. Now, I'm aware of the fact that almost every time we ever say that, it ends up being like a 14-10 final. But I'm going to just say that this is going to be the week that it's going to actually live up to the expectation. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. In all honesty, this one might come down to who gets the ball last. It really might just be that kind of game. If you need to leave any time for Patrick Mahomes on the clock, I have a suggestion for you. Use your running game and make them burn timeouts. It's an idea.
Or the other thing you would do is not take all your linebackers, safeties, and DBs and move them 20 yards backwards. That would help as well.
Yes, it would. So yes.
Ridiculous.
But yeah, this one might come down to who gets the ball last. I think both teams are pretty well evenly matched, in all honesty. I think Kansas City is going to win, only because I'm going to give it to them as the home team, with everything else pretty much being equal. But I really do think that this could come down to who gets the ball last, and I would not be surprised if the Cincinnati Bengals win this game.
I can respect that, especially since I picked up. We rolling with Big E. Big E's been on the the Cincinnati bandwagon the whole time.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I'm only gonna pick Kansas City because they're the home team, but yeah, Cincy could win this, man. Not gonna sleep on them.
Cincy will win this.
So we do have to talk about real quick before we move on. we do have to talk a little bit about the uh, the way that these teams kind of got to this game, which was the Chiefs, won in overtime against the Bills, in a game in which literally everybody stopped playing any level of defense whatsoever for like the last 2 minutes. Um, I don't know if the defenses were just tired or whatever the case may have been. Um, but the Cincinnati Bengals, they're a team, man. They had to fight through. Joe Burrow took a lot of hits against Tennessee. Um, so when I'm looking at these teams, the other thing that I'm looking at, and this isn't necessarily why I think that, or I'm sorry, this is why I think that Cincinnati has a good chance. I think they're the more battle tested team. I think Kansas City is they're just going out there and just playing arcade football. This Cincinnati team has actually gone through it. They're outside of the 49ers, they came into these playoffs as the most one of the most battle tested teams coming in. So I mean, I'm just curious, like, what your thoughts are in terms of when you have a team like a Cincinnati that's coming in and they have been through those hard games where they've had those struggles. How do you think that prepares them for a game like this versus the Kansas City that's, in all honesty, just they really haven't been challenged in that way?
I mean, I completely agree. Kansas City has had it, pretty light throughout the playoffs. I mean, obviously, that last game, they had the miracle in 13 seconds to tie the game up, which shouldn't have happened. But hey, if you let that happen, it's on you. And then I think momentum
Yeah.
is the biggest thing to win, right? A lot of teams that we expect to win the Super Bowl don't win, and teams that we don't expect win because of momentum. I see that in Cincinnati. There is another team I see that in that we'll be talking about in a few minutes, but I think momentum is very important.
Yeah.
Versus complacency, versus we're not as hungry because we've been there, versus we're supposed to be here, so there's pressure. So I think that momentum, being young enough to be like, oh, whatever, but still good enough to be like, we understand that we may not, those opportunities don't come around too often. So I think Cincinnati has the right mix. I think they're everything you need for that upset team to beat a Kansas City. Would I be surprised if Kansas City pulls out the win? No, I wouldn't be. But I just feel like I've seen enough from Cincinnati to be like, you know what? Switching it up. I apologize, Cincinnati. You're legit.
Yeah. It kind of feels like one of them teams right now, right? So
Yeah.
I wanted to bring that up earlier, but we had kind of like jumped on Pixlr earlier than I expected us to. So I just wanted to kind of circle back and talk about that real quick. So moving over to the NFC, let's be honest, we're going to give our thoughts a little bit on the game itself, but we've already covered the 49ers Rams twice this year. So there's really not going to be a lot we're going to say about the actual game itself. So maybe let's spend a little bit of time here talking about how those two teams actually got to this game. So we'll start with the Rams. Played the Bucks last week. They were up big. Looked like they were going to absolutely just blow the Bucks out of the water. And then the choke was on. What did you see? I mean, like, do you think they just really are just lucky to even be in this game right now?
So most people would say luck. I would just say that maybe it's their destiny to be here.
Yeah,
But really, I mean, I'm watching. I'm like, you really are just going to allow them to get back in the game when you know that the referees are going to do everything they can to help them. That's not a wise decision. But the Rams have been kind of in that mode for a couple of weeks, right? We all played at the end of the regular season, kind of the same thing. I mean, they had you big and they blew it. They didn't quite blow it, but they were headed down the same road. So I think when you look at a team like that, there's either one or two ways to look at it. Either you could say, oh, they just tripped and fumbled into the next round. They barely got there. Or, hey, they just were able to do just enough to get past that team. They've got the funky game out of the way, and now they're coming ready to play.
yeah. What I saw was a team who pretty much collapsed. Um, they were in full panic mode. And I truly feel if it were not for Tampa basically making a poor decision to leave Cooper Kupp in coverage with a safety. I mean, listen, Winfield is a great safety. He's not covering Cooper Kupp one-on-one. If they don't make that decision, then I don't think that the Rams even win this game. I think we're talking 49ers against the Bucs this week. We're talking Tom Brady, Jimmy Garoppolo. We're talking about all those things. So
thank God.
Hey, he got open. Matthew Stafford made the throw. I give him credit for that.
I have never in my life wanted Matthew Stafford to win a game more. Thank you, Matthew Stafford. Thank you.
I mean, I'm not exactly upset about it.
Send him home.
We're going to get a home playoff game out of it.
So that's another thing that we should probably discuss.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So tell me, as the Niners representative, the Niners aficionado, the Niners guy, clearly, we can see that in your background as well. How do you feel about the whole scenario of them attempting to stop guys, pretty much 49ers fans, from being able to buy tickets, and Ticketmaster finally just being like, look, bro, no, we're selling these tickets. Whoever get them, get them. How do you feel about that?
I thought it was hilarious. So for those who do not know the story of what happened, prior to the game against the Bucs, the Rams put their tickets on sale for the NFC Championship. Now, before anybody runs out and thinks that the Rams were being presumptuous and that they were, pre-selling tickets before they even made it, that is a very common practice for a team who will be potentially hosting a game in the next round to do. So they weren't doing anything that every other team wouldn't have done. So, but what they did do that a lot of other teams won't do is they put a restriction on who could buy the tickets. So you literally had to go by your credit card number or your credit card billing address is what dictated this, but they would only allow you to buy tickets if you lived in the greater Los Angeles area. And why might they do that? That would be because there was probably about 60% 49ers fans at the game in week 18. It was so many 49ers fans. It was so loud that Matthew Stafford had to go on a silent count at home. Well, here's the thing. After all the complaints and after Ticketmaster realizing that 49ers fans have found like multiple ways around this restriction anyways, because literally like 49er fans within like an hour were posting in forums about different ways to go out and get like fake billing addresses for your credit card and everything else to get around this restriction. It just took the restriction off the next day. So right now, the last I saw, the current projections are somewhere between about 65 and 70% of the tickets being sold are the 49ers fans. It is going to be a 49ers home game, basically, which means that if you really think about it, we win this game, we go to the Super Bowl, we get 3 extra home games this year. And our players have been affectionately calling it Little Levi's.
So, what I think is important or interesting is that the winner of this game could just really chill in LA for a couple of weeks because you're going to be right back there for the Super Bowl.
I mean, even in San Francisco, you go back here to your stadium. You're only like an hour
could.
Away. Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Follow my point. So essentially, you play in the same stadium 2 weeks, as my co-host has stated. His players and everyone is treated like a home game. Obviously, if they somehow lose, the Rams fans will believe it's a home game because it is there and they're not playing the 49ers. So I think it's important just to note that you're really kind of playing a game here because you played there in week 18 too, right? So you played there in week 18. Mm-hmm. Then you're playing there again. And then 2 more weeks, one of you is going to be playing there again. So I just think that's an interesting point that it's all going to come down to that. And they can either be, the Rams can either be the second coming of the Buccaneers. And before you go further, I mean in hosting the Super Bowl in your stadium. Not that you're necessarily going to win it, but hosting it in your stadium, or they're going to lose to the 49ers this week. So I just thought that was an interesting point that I haven't heard brought up a lot. Obviously, we still have some time, but like to kind of throw some things out there and make y'all get some things that make you say, your mind for the week.
Yeah. So, I mean, we want to keep the show pretty close to our hour here.
Of
But
course we do.
let's talk real quick about what the 49ers were able to do last week. Because they did something a lot of people, some of the people in the chat over here, did not think they could do, which was went into Green Bay in freezing cold temperatures, and they absolutely shut down the Green Bay Packers. My co-host asked me last week, do you believe your defense can slow down Aaron Rodgers? And I said yes. And I told you exactly how they could do it. And guess what? They went out and did exactly what I said they would be able to do.
They did. I mean, the only thing you could really say, or the only thing I can say, is simply we talked about how the 49ers were a good defense. You talked to yourself about how last week you were some concern with your corners. But other than that, you feel like you had a really solid defense. Well, when you're getting that type of pressure on the quarterback and you're able to affect how quickly he needs to get rid of the ball, which affects the routes, and anybody who wants to say that Green Bay was at a disadvantage playing at home because of the snow and the ice and things, that's what's supposed to be the Lambeau Field mystique. That's supposed to be what they have over other teams. So I'm not going to allow you to sit here and say that it was a disadvantage for them if it's something that they should be used to, if that's what they've been using to win games and what's helped them and what's made them a great team at home. You can't turn around and then say, that's why they lost. No, I reject those deposits completely. San Francisco went out. They did not do well offensively, but defense and special teams carried them and they got a win. I will say this week, San Francisco, y'all better kick up the offense and find a way to put more points on the board.
Yeah. And kind of jumping into this week, I think that's going to be a big key for the 49ers and traditionally the offense has played a lot better against the Rams. When you actually look at it, if you actually go to the second half against the Rams in week 18, then go to Dallas and then go to Green Bay, this defense in the last 10 quarters of football has given up 35 points total against three of the most high-powered offenses in the league. What D'Amico Ryans has done defensively with this team is beyond impressive. I will sit here and readily admit that I was very critical of him early in the season. And I'm not going to back off my comments because he deserved every single bit of that criticism early in the season. But he has found his footing as a defensive coordinator. His growth as a coordinator is mind-blowing, in all honesty. I've gone from being unhappy with him to hoping we don't lose him this offseason. Hope we at least get one more season with him. So I've been very impressed, and I give him a lot of credit for that. But you're right. The offense is going to have to do more this week. It cannot be stagnant. Jimmy, I think, can have a turnover because I think Matthew Stafford's going to have a turnover too. So I think that will balance out. But Jimmy can't go out there and have multiple turnovers. We got to take care of the ball. We got to move the chains. We got to actually do something. You don't have the excuse of, your hands being frozen. You don't have any of those things to kind of rely on. I look at last week as a bit of an anomaly. I think the offense will get back on track this week. And more specifically, I think the running game will get back on track this week.
And bottom line, we know where you're going. It's clear. I'm also going to San Francisco. I think it's actually around about the same. I'm going to say score wise. I'm not going to give exact score, but around about the same score wise as the other game. I think somewhere in the 20s for the winner, the high teens for the loser. I just don't see a lot of these games being these offensive, outbursts that a lot of people think. And that's just because, especially this game, think about it, it's just two teams that know each other, right? Bengals and the Chiefs played this year as well. So you have two teams that have played each other already. So you kind of know what the other team wants to do. And obviously, you guys are divisional foes, so you know exactly what the other team wants to do. So I think it's going to be game, set, match type thing. You make adjustments, we make adjustments. Who makes the best last adjustments? Who has the ball last? Are you comfortable with San Francisco's defense against the Rams offense, or do you want San Francisco's offense against the Rams defense? So that's kind of to me what's going to determine the game. And like I said, man, I don't see either one of these games being out of the 20s seriously for the winner. I know a lot of people think Kansas City is going to go blow them out. If you look at Kansas City throughout the season, they've had really good games. They've had games where they haven't been so impressive. I don't think they're going to get in the end zone a lot. I think they're going to put up a lot of yards, but I don't think they're going to get in the end zone a lot.
I will just throw this out real quick. I actually saw this on from one of the guys who covers the 49ers out for KMBR radio out there. He actually put this stat out. Everybody's running around right now talking about the struggle the 49ers are going to have is that it's difficult to beat a team 3 times in a season. I've heard that over and over and over again. And something he pointed out was since the NFL merger in 1970, we've actually had 22 instances of a team sweeping another team in the regular season and then seeing each other in the playoffs. In those 22 games, the team that swept the regular season is 14-8. In other words, the team who swept in the regular season has actually won 63% of the time.
Yeah, heard that stat as well.
Yeah. Want to know why I think that stat exists is very simple. When you play each other 3 times, as my co-host just said, you know each other. There's no secrets. You might throw a couple wrinkles in. You might get a couple plays here and there that are something the team's not expecting. But for the most part, it's lining up. It's who has the best matchups. It's about who is the better football team. And the
100%
Rams are
agree.
a very talented football team, but we are a nightmare matchup for them. They were built to do what they did this past week. They were built to beat teams like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are not built to go against a physical, grinded out team like the 49ers. That's not what they're designed to do. This is a horrible matchup for them. And that's why they haven't beat us in 6 games. It's about matchups. Not about who's necessarily more talented. It's about matchups.
It's definitely matchups. That's the theme of the playoffs, right? Appreciate the comment there, Jedediah. I do agree that I think the Chiefs and the Bengals are more of a toss-up for most people. There are people who feel like the Rams are going to win for different reasons. And I mean, the truth of the matter is it's the NFL, right? The Rams could come out with the perfect game plan to win the game. It would be shocking, but it could happen. The 49ers could come out with a dominant game plan and just spank them out of the water.
Yeah.
You never know. But I think you look at what's happening, and you'd have to say San Francisco looks like the team that's going to win this game. And Billy V, San Francisco hasn't, to my knowledge, I haven't watched every snap, as I'm sure my co-host has, but I don't think they've been using Trey Lance in the playoffs.
They have not used him since outside of the 2 games that he had to start. They have not used him in any kind of gadget role since like week 3, which was against Green Bay. I won't be surprised if they actually do roll him out there for a series or 2. That might be that wrinkle that Shanahan decides to deploy this week. I don't think he'll go out much, but he might come out there for a series or 2 or like a play or 2 here or there.
And obviously, if something were to happen to Jimmy, not wishing it on anybody, but then obviously you'd see him more. But yeah,
I do just have to throw this out there real quick, man. Is the idea of lining Trent Williams, who runs a sub 540 and weighs 320 pounds, up at fullback and allowing him to get a full head of steam and run into somebody? Is that honestly like come across as like the most diabolical thing that you could possibly do to opposing teams? I mean, that was just diabolical, man.
Well, I would say I'm glad we're not the team that he's going to be running down the field against,
Yeah, that play was just crazy, man. I had to reflect on that real quick. So yeah, so obviously, that's our picks. So we're both taking the 49ers. We're split on the Kansas City and Bengals, but we both acknowledge that that's really a toss-up game and either team can actually win that one. So we will see what's gonna happen. Come back next Friday, see if we were right. We'll also talk a little bit more about those NFL GM hires, any additional NFL coaching hires that get made. We'll talk about the NBA All Star rosters and them ugly behind jerseys that they came out with, and
Not really early. They're just practice jerseys. But,
and any other breaking news that happens over the next week. If you haven't already, please make sure you do and hit the subscribe button down there in the lower right hand corner of your screen, and share the page, man. Come back, see us next week. We will holler at you Friday nights, 7 p.m.
play callers out.
The
The
play
play
call.
caller.